First National Bank of Boston versus Bellotti. Nobody ever talks about that. What the hell is that? Well, it turns out it's a case that in 1978 decided that corporations have First Amendment rights, that they are allowed to spend on influencing our elections. Previous to that, they were not allowed to spend money on elections. That is when the Borg began. That is when the corporations started taking over our politicians. That coincides perfectly with what Ralph Nader talked about with Tony Coelho convincing the Democratic Party, no, we have to take corporate sponsors just like the Republicans, otherwise they're going to outspend us. Everything started going wrong after this decision. Now, you want to know who made that decision? Well, it was a justice by the name of Lewis Powell. Okay, who was Lewis Powell? Well, back in 1971, Lewis Powell was a corporate lawyer who wrote a memo to the Chamber of Commerce saying we have to take the gloves off. We have to use corporate power as much as we possibly can to take over political decision-making. And the one place where we have not taken over enough and that we can influence American politics more than we have so far is the Supreme Court. He said we have to go to the judiciary and have them allow us to put money into campaigns. A month after he wrote that memo in 1971, Richard Nixon put Lewis Powell on the Supreme Court. And after Lewis Powell got on the Supreme Court, they had a number of cases, including in 1976, a case that said that political speech is, spending money is political speech and is a First Amendment right. Then in 1978, they say, well, you know what? Corporations also have that First Amendment right. And since then, slowly the Borg has taken over. You know, I read a lot about stuff that Tom Hartman has been talking about for a long time. And I tell you, he does a great show, and there's a lot to learn from Tom. And the original case in 1886, Tom researched himself, and now his research is confirmed, and it's amazing. Well, what happened in 1886? Well, there was a Supreme Court case that decided that corporations were people, that they had the same rights as human beings. Except when you look back on it, as Tom did, that case did not say that. It didn't say that at all. It was a clerk for the Supreme Court, not a justice, a clerk, who wrote in a head note, oh, by the way, corporations have the same rights as human beings. Now, that is not controlling law at all. It's not even close, but it gets much worse. He wrote that 2 years after the decision. What the hell is a clerk going back in 2 years later and putting a note on that case for? Now it gets worse. That case involved the railroads. That clerk, former president of a railroad. Look, the corporations, by law, have to maximize profits. They are not evil, they are not immoral, but they are amoral. And their job is to maximize profit no matter what. So like the Borg, they will invade the judiciary, they will invade the legislative, they will invade the executive so that they can make monopolies for themselves, so they can accrue power and then exercise that power. That's exactly what's happened to our country. The problem is now the financial industry, when it does that, and as Dick Durbin, the number 2 guy for the Democrats in the Senate, said earlier in the year, or last year, he said the banks frankly run this place. And so when the banks do that, what do? We give them all the money. We gave them the money under TARP. We gave them the money under so many different programs. Right now the banks are borrowing money from the United States government at 0% interest rate. That's a license to print money. That's why in 2009, the banks made record profits like they have never made. Why? They have a monopoly, and they've captured our government. So now how are we going to fix that? The reason I'm talking about it today is because we have financial reform that is meant to trick you. It's a joke. It's a disaster. It's meant to put a Band-Aid on and go, oh, look at that. Everybody pats each other on the back, the Republicans and the Democrats. Say, oh, we fixed it. We fixed it. No, they didn't. Right now, the banks are bigger than they have ever been. their combined assets equals 52% of our GDP. And they can take as much risk as they want right now and use as much leverage as they want. It is a system that is guaranteed to explode. Look, this isn't about Obama, because Obama's not the guy who did it. Obama, as a human being, is not some sort of master conspiratorial head that thinks, ha ha ha, I'm going to put the banks in charge. Obama is a product of the system. The system was designed to find a guy like Obama who is going to tell you pretty stories and actually not fix the system. If you're hoping that Obama is going to make that change, at this point, it looks like that is false hope. He is not going to do it. And when he doesn't, from time to time you see traces of hope, and there's a guy named Thomas Honig who is one of the Fed regulators out in Kansas, and we can't tell if he's a Republican or a Democrat. He certainly has conservative leanings, but he's a very smart guy, and he has the right ideas on how to do regulation, because he's not involved in politics. So you see a guy like Honig, and you think, well, maybe there's some hope. Every once in a while, they propose some regulation that's smart, like the Volcker rules, and you say, maybe there's some hope. But overall, I am very, very afraid for where we're going. It's iceberg straight ahead. God help us all.